Just a small little note for everyone that's here already. I think we'll just wait a little bit more to let all the other people come in first. So just hang tight a little bit and we'll start shortly. Right, I think we can start now. Okay. Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome to our webinar on Who Should You Seek, hosted by the Reframe Project. Just a good evening and thank you so much for coming today, everyone. We understand that it's a Friday night. You could be relaxing at home, enjoying a nice weekend and dinner, but here we are, sitting here and listening on and learning more about mental health and psychology. So just a little bit of a background to explain as to why we hosted this webinar was that we wanted to clear up some. We realized that there was misconceptions surrounding like mental health professionals and what they do. So we wanted to host this webinar with the objectives of clearing those misconceptions and hopefully providing clarity to you viewers, so that maybe for your student, if you have a career aspiration in the field of psychology, it will provide much needed clarity. And if you're the general public who are just seeking who just want to know more about the forms of therapy and how to go about it or how to access it, we hope that through this webinar, you can understand better of how to go about it. So hopefully from this webinar, we hope that what you get out of it is that you would know how each role a mental health professional play and how they differ from each other, how each role fits into the larger mental health system as a whole, and who to seek depending on what circumstances you face and how to go about it. Moving on, we would like to thank our sponsors, Malaysian Centre for Constitutionalism and Human Rights, MCCHR, for their sponsorship in our marketing, and also for their technical and strategic consultations. Also, a special thanks to the team behind the Reframe project. Without their hard work and diligence, this webinar would not have been made possible. Some basic housekeeping rules. Do note that this webinar will be recorded, and all viewers' mic and video cams would be off for the remainder of this webinar. If you have friends who want to come into the webinar later but can't because the Zoom call is full, do note that we have a FB live session going on at our Facebook page, the Reframe Project, so you can view our webinar from there. If you guys have burning questions that you'd like to ask our mental health professionals today, please leave them at the Q&A section below. If you see a specific question that you really want answered by our panelists over here, please don't forget to upvote it. What else? Also note that at the end of the session, we will have a feedback form. So please complete it. We need the feedback to improve further webinars in the future. For those who are interested in getting certification for attendance or CPD points, it is very important for you to fill up the feedback form in regards to that. And lastly, in terms of the housekeeping rule, just want to explain that the rough structure of the webinar today would be the first half being explaining the 3 roles, clinical psychologists, counselors, and psychiatrists, and what they do. The second half would be a panel and a Q&A session. So now I'll introduce our panelists for today. Firstly, we have representing the counselor, Dr. Nicole Chen. She is a senior lecturer in the psychology department at IMU. She is an active EXCO member at the Malaysian Marriage and Family Association and has been working as a registered counselor and trainer in various professional settings since 2001. Next up, we have Dr. XAVIER Vincent PEREIRA. He is a consultant psychiatrist and psychotherapist and an associate professor at Taylor's University School of Medicine. He practices consultation at 2 private hospitals and is credentialed to practice at Sungai Buloh General Hospital. And he has more than 25 years of experience in both community work and public mental health care. Lastly, of our speakers is Dr. ALVIN Ng. He is currently a professorial teaching fellow and head at the Department of Psychology at Sunway University. He is a clinical psychologist by training and was previously attached with University Kebangsaan Malaysia for 11 years as an instructor and practitioner in clinical psychology. All right, so now I think we have covered most of the introductions. We can actually get down to the content of the webinar. So let's kick things off with Dr. Nicole Chen to share on her part on what is her role as a counselor. Okay, Dr. Nicole Chen, you can take over.
Sorry, Daryl, can I pause you for a bit? Actually, we are having some technical issues with getting this onto the Facebook Live. Hi, everybody. My name is Marisha. You guys have been talking to me for the past few days. Could we put this on hold for maybe just 2 or 3 minutes while we get the thing live? Because we want to make sure that the rest of them can actually see and enjoy our time here with our fellow panelists today. So your patience would be really appreciated. We'll be back shortly in 2 to 3 minutes. Daryl, you can just talk a bit, talk to our attendees for a while we get this sorted. Thanks, everybody.
All right, okay. Well, I guess we have to wait a little bit. Okay. Let's see. All right, hello everyone. Can you guys hear? Okay, I know you guys can't talk, so.
Yep, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah. Nice, 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 nice. It's good that everyone can hear. So just curious, since we have a lot of time here, I'm just curious as to what's your background, or what's your background for everyone? Like, are your students, are your like working professionals, any mental health professionals in the audience here? Please type out the chat so we can share. Psychology student, second year. Right, right. Special needs teacher, wow. Okay. What about everybody else? Psychology student, business student, social worker student. Wow, we're getting a lot of psychology students here. No surprise there. Wow, cognitive neuroscience. That's pretty impressive.
Daryl, for both Daryl and the attendees here, we have finally been able to reach out and get on Facebook Live. So I think you can continue as you were, Daryl. Thank you guys so much for your patience.
All right, thank you so much, Marisha. Okay, so let's start again. So where will we? I don't think I need to restart the introductions again. I think we can just go ahead with it. I don't think we can afford that time anymore. So let's just start things off first with our first speaker, Dr. Nicole Chen, to talk about her role as a counselor.
Thank you so much, Dara, and thanks for everyone part of this event. I think I have to really thank the project owner, Reframe Project, as well, the sponsor. Really appreciate them making this event happen. So well done, yeah, everyone. Okay, so I'm a registered counselor, so I've served as a counselor coming to 20 years. Okay, so what my role as a counselor here? Have been challenging to really define it sometimes. I would say why? Because the dynamic of mental health cases keep increasing every year. But I'll try my best, yeah, to explain to all of you. So help all of you to able to have a better understanding the role of counselor. And one of our major role that actually assist client managing issue and difficulty that impact their life. Example, especially sudden change in life, lifespan. Example, people who lost someone they love, experience grief, or someone who go into transition into a new job, they get worry and anxiety, yeah, or people find difficult to managing their anger. So any form of issue that they're finding difficult and cope in their daily life, that's where I'll come in as a counselor to assist them. We also actually help provide a lot of support to clients or patients who are actually coping and managing interpersonal issue, especially coming to adjusting. Even different stages of life, you came to different challenges. Example, from a single man, you're married and you have kids. So all these stages will come into a lot of stress. So that's what we come in as a counselor. As a counselor, also I'll provide counseling-related assessment, but very much I would say it's like a career assessment because most of the counselors are quite well trained in terms of career consultation assessment, especially those who still wanted to search, be very clear in terms of direction of career. So counsel do play that part as well in guiding and provide guidance and assessment to provide support to those who wanted to have explore into their career changes or planning as well. And one aspect that I find really difficult to define it, but it's a need that I would say is increasing drastic increase of mental health cases. So I do see new additional roles among counselors now will be managing crisis. Example, counselor who serve in colleges, university, often one of the very common work they had to do is managing crisis, because students can be experiencing crisis, can be due to many reasons. Can be due to the loss of someone's loved one, it can be due to become very stressed into academic, and therefore they have to managing crisis and preventing action of students who may attempt suicide. Yeah, so we do see that an additional role come in where the counselor do come in to provide support and managing crisis. Why we have to play out this role? If you ask me, ideally we should have more social worker and crisis worker to assist in that. Unfortunately, in Malaysia, we are still very much lacking people who are trained in crisis work, especially social worker and crisis worker. So therefore, I do see sometimes counselors have to play that role as well. Okay. Another aspect that I like to share that I find it very important for me to place the role as a counselor is creating a bridge between me able to referring my cases to people who needed special care. Example, if I wanted to refer a case or client who are suffering with mental illness, it's not easy for someone to acknowledge that they are mentally ill. So I do see myself play the role as a counselor to create that safe bridge. So whenever they need someone to talk to about what's going on, and when I do into my own assessment, I realize that, okay, this client needs more than just counseling. That's why our linking this client to professional health such as psychiatric and clinical psychology, or even sometimes other specialists as well, depend on the natures of cases. So I think that is also one of the very important role that counselor have to play. Yeah, but this part have been challenging because sometimes the counselor do not know, okay, what circumstances that this case had to refer. But I do think that very important for us as counselor be very much aware about this role as well. So in coming into the natures of client that we serve, because you'll be wondering, so what would be different between the counselor, clinical psychologist, and psychiatric? So what case that I handle, how case that handled by clinical psychologists as well, psychiatric. So as I mentioned, type of client that I handle, but generally my client fall into this category I call a highly functioning client who are able to managing their daily activity. Example, they can still go to work, they're still able to function, but somehow they experience a lot of stresses in life. It can be triggered by relationship, it can be triggered by stress in work, all that facilitate a lot of stress and anxiety or worry. Yeah. So my role will be help them to able to guide them how to managing this worry and anxiety. Okay, but this is in case my client are still highly functioning and they're still able to working very closely with me, looking into what are the strategy to help them. But when my client fall into a category what I call their daily functions start affected. Example, they start to have difficulty sleeping. They have to have difficulty in eating. Example, they find difficult to sleep. They always maybe sleep 2 hours or 3 hours and have been prolonged for a few months. Or they find difficult to have, example, they start to lose a lot of weight. Yeah, can be. It's normally it's like they're affected in terms of their diet aspect. So therefore, that we start to see a drastic change, and you start to see client can't function very well, and that's where I will tap into my peer, clinical psychologist and psychiatrist to assist me. Yeah, so this is the aspect that presently the role of counselor. And one thing that the counselor you see that we are everywhere is true because our specialties, I would say that our area of expertise, we do serve in different settings. Yeah, we serve in school, we serve in university, colleges, company, even human resources. But that is where the trainings of counselor, they equip skill to able to serve a general public. Yeah, so hope all this explanation help you to understand better about the role of counselor. Thank you so much, Daryl.
All right, no worries. All right, so I think we'll move on to the next speaker. We'll have Dr. XAVIER, represented as a psychiatrist, to tell us about his role.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to be with you here, and I would like to thank the organizers for organizing such actually a useful event. I'm a psychiatrist by profession, but I'm also a certified psychotherapist. Now, if we are going to celebrate actually World Mental Health Day on the 10th of October, and the theme for World Mental Health Day this year is mental health for all. And I think it's good that there's a human rights group that is the sponsor of this program, because I believe that just as each and every one of us has a right to good health, each and every one has a right to good mental health. And that's where we play a role. Whether we are counselors or clinical psychologists or psychiatrists, we work together to provide accessibility to mental health services. And I believe that working as a team actually brings about a very good approach, a holistic approach that can help many people who have mental health challenges. I'm also the co-founder director of an NGO called Health Equity Initiatives. And here we work as a team. We have psychiatrists, we have clinical psychologists, and we have counselors. And when we work as a team, I would say that in many countries, there are also social workers and mental health nurses who work with us, and we can provide good care. I also believe that, to be a psychiatrist or a clinical psychologist or a counselor, it's a calling. it's a calling to serve people who actually need us to journey with them. Yeah, and unless and until we realize that we are called and we work from our calling as people who bring healing to people, other people, we might not be at our best. Yeah, and thus I shall move on to what a psychiatrist is. I think you all were waiting for this. A psychiatrist is, of course, a medical doctor. Yeah, so we are different from our basic training, different from a clinical psychologist who has a basic degree in psychology first, and a counselor who can have a basic degree in psychology but needs a master's degree in counseling. So we specialize as in a particular area, and this is the area we call psychiatry. Just like a surgeon, after doing a basic medical degree, specializes in surgery. Yeah. Actually, in our training as psychiatrists, we are also trained to do therapy. So we are trained to do individual psychotherapy. We are trained to do couples and family therapy and group therapy. That was my training when I did my master's in psychiatry program in University Malaya. In University Malaya, particularly in University Hospital. And because I think I was very tuned. And I actually, Nicole, I wanted to become a counselor when I was a medical student. And I was a student pastoral worker. And my dean, after I completed my degree in medicine, he wanted me to continue. But since I studied in India, in St. John's Medical College, Bangalore, I needed a work permit. So I said, I'm sorry, sir, I need to leave and go back to Malaysia to serve my people there. Yeah. So counseling has such a big role to play when we deal with our patients who are called psychiatric patients. So I would rather not use the word psychiatric patients because there's a lot of stigma attached to the term psychiatry. Yeah. And that's one of the challenges we have. So what does a psychiatrist do? A psychiatrist makes a diagnosis by assessing the patient, and we work towards treatment based on the diagnosis. Many people think we psychiatrists only prescribe medication. Medication is part of what we do. We are supposed also to offer support, and we are supposed to also offer psychotherapy if we are psychotherapists. I went further and did my certification in interpersonal psychotherapy. I'm an internationally certified psychotherapist and a supervisor and a trainer. I've had the opportunity to train Malaysian psychiatrists and psychologists in interpersonal psychotherapy. And when medication and psychotherapy go hand in hand, we get the best outcomes in terms of treatment. Yeah. But there are certain disorders or illnesses where the psychiatrist has to play the key role. For instance, psychotic illnesses like schizophrenia. The psychiatrist plays the main role, while the counselor and the clinical psychologist helps out in providing the support and therapy if required. Then severe depression, people with severe depression, depressive disorders, people with severe mood disorders like bipolar disorders, people with severe anxiety, people with substance use disorders, better to see the psychiatrist first before going on for more help from a clinical psychologist. Yeah. So these are the points that I would like to put forward. Anyhow, we'll be having a discussion, and I'll take the questions after Dr. ALVIN finishes his input. Yeah, over to you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. XAVIER PEREIRA. I think now we'll move on to the next speaker. Representing clinical psychologists, we have Dr. ALVIN Ng to tell us about what is a clinical psychologist.
Thank you, Daryl, and thank you, Dr. Nicole and Dr. Xavier for their inputs. I'm totally in line with both of you. I'm glad that we can all, three of us talk about our professions here and how all of us contribute to the promotion of mental health and the management of mental illness. So as a clinical psychologist, usually these days I just call myself trained as a clinical psychologist because I'm no longer practicing as one, because I'm a full-time academic here at Sunway University. Obviously, this is just a background, I'm not actually in front because it's very dark now, as we know. So training as a clinical psychologist involves doing coursework, research, and of course, clinical work. And I would say how we are different from counselors and psychiatrists. The main difference, I would say, is the training in psychometric assessments. Very, very comprehensive assessments. Not to say that psychiatrists and counselors don't do assessment, they do too. They have got their own kind of assessments. But when it comes to comprehensive assessments such as psychological tests, I mean, normally the neuroclinical psychologist would do it, but we do comprehensive ones such as, the Bachelor intelligence scale for children, adult scale, IQ test basically, that we don't just come out with an IQ score, but we are able to read the whole profile to let you know what the person's strengths are and what the person may have some difficulties in. And from there, we provide further investigations as to how an individual is functioning or not functioning. And the results of the investigation, the results contribute to diagnosis that's done by the psychiatrist. So that's how we work hand in hand, because if you look at Malaysia, technically the only people who are allowed to do any diagnosis are psychiatrists. Is that right, Xavier? Yeah, because I mean, psychiatrists are bound by the Medical Act.
Yes.
Yeah, and clinical psychologists, we have an act now, but it is not enforceable yet. We can talk about that later. So if anyone were to do a diagnosis and they don't have any accountability to any act, that's a dangerous thing. So you need to think about legal implications. So basically, a clinical psychologist is someone who is specialized in providing psychological assessments that contributes to either a diagnosis or contributes to further understanding of a person's condition, psychological condition, that then provides information as to how we might come out with a treatment program. So essentially, we are investigators. We are detectives. And by being detectives, also, we can better understand how an individual is. We can then contribute treatment as well. We are also trained in psychotherapy. It depends on which school or approach of psychotherapy. Usually, it is cognitive behavior therapy. So we train in that to focus on more severe psychological problems. Not as severe as what Dr. Xavier was talking about, schizophrenia, but we do provide support, supportive therapy, lifestyle changes, behavioral changes to mental illness patients. And once the patients, I would prefer to call them clients, are more stable, they would then usually get continued support from the counselor because they're already functioning. And having said that, I would say, a lot of the times, whenever there's any intervention, it is not just one person intervening, it's a whole team of us. Like what Dr. Xavier was talking about, the psychiatrist is involved, the psychologist is involved, the counselor is involved at the same time. Because, when one person has a problem, it's not just the one person who needs help. The people around that one person, the family members. So who helps the lifestyle change? Who supports a family? We need a whole team to do that. No one person can do the job. So if you seek help from any so-called mental health professional who say, I can do everything, they're likely to be fakes. Run far, far away, because there's only so much we can do, and we need to work as a team. So we're all friends here as mental health professionals. We have to collaborate, and Sorry, it's kind of late at night, so my brain's not working very well. We complement each other. Yeah, so that's the niche of a clinical psychologist, mostly assessment. We can provide the assessments for diagnosis as well as to inform treatment. We can run the treatment. And the other bit that we tend to be more trained in is behavioral management. Behavioral therapy, that is not really something that is part of counseling. Counseling will touch on that also, right, Nicole? And same thing with psychiatrists, but not so much, but it's more heavily focused in clinical psychology because we are more like, I guess you can say the coach, you know, we're the taskmasters. Counselors are nice, fluffy people. Psychologists are the ones who are tough. We make you do the work. Come on, let's do it. Come on, let's go to the gym, pump some iron, be big and strong like Arne. You know, that kind of stuff. So we're not that nice. We're taskmasters. Yeah, basically that's what we do. So those of you students in psychology who think, wow, clinical psychology, I want to go there, you want to think twice because you probably end up doing tons of assessment, writing lots of reports, just like doing another thesis, but one thesis a day, which means you need to go through all kinds of literature review again and again, because when you write your report, you're going to make sure that you support whatever you write with updated literature. Otherwise, in case that report goes to court, haha, lawyers are going to tear you apart. So it's very scientist practitioner. Whatever that we do, we assess or we treat has to be backed up by updated literature. And what we do in the clinic also is to be able to provide our clients with options of treatment. And we need to be able to explain to our clients about these options, why we think these options are good, and what are some of the scientific evidence that shows that they are likely to work, and then help the client to make the decisions. So it's kind of like, okay, we find from our investigations that these are the things that would be good for you. This is like this, outcomes are like, you know, this, and these are the what's involved. Then they are able to make the decision, and we try something out. It's always scientist practitioner, measurement, so that if you get better, we know. If you don't get better, also we know. It's a partnership in helping you get better, making sure that whatever that we do in our intervention or treatment actually improves your quality of life. We work hand in hand with counselors and psychiatrists because, you know, sometimes when you take medication, you get drowsy at night. Before you want to get drowsy, you're unable to function. You wake up in the morning, you're super groggy, you can't function. That's not good quality of life. That's why we need to work hand in hand to ensure that that individual is able to function as best as possible. Otherwise, it's besides the point, taking medication and then you don't get better, right? Not to say that medication doesn't work. It works, it's just that there may be some kind of side effects here and there that you need to change your whole lifestyle for, which is very stressful. So lots to do as a team. So I hope I make sense there. Not quite typical of me to talk at this time of the night, especially on a Friday night where I'm super tired already. But hey, well, you know, we try our best. All right, so back to you, Daryl.
All right. All right. So thank you, speakers, so much for your explanation on what your role specifically plays out in the mental health field. Pretty enlightening. So I think we just move on to the next section, to the panel discussion. I think based on the speaker roles that you guys mentioned earlier, there was a lot of mention of how each role plays together in a team. You know, that you guys don't act out individually, but you actually collaborate together to work together to the benefit of the client, right? Because like each role serves a very specific function or specializes in a very specific function. So my first panel question to all of you three, you can choose who wants to answer first. You can actually discuss together if you want to, right? Make it like a collaborative discussion. Share with us an experience where there was a collaborative effort between the roles that you guys, between the three roles here. So like, yeah, what's an example of a collaborative experience that you had in the past?
Okay, I would like to start just to share. Because sometimes I find counselor find difficult to understand as well. I think it's so very good for me to talk about, because I felt I'm blessed because I felt like I got given opportunity to work with different mental health field, and which not all counselors are given that opportunity. It depends the setting they're working, and I'm blessed in the way that I have worked with clinical psychologists before, and currently I'm also working in a healthcare clinic. So it helped me to able to see how I can work closely with mental health professional. So let's talk about example. Mother call for appointment, saying that the daughter changed in behavior, suddenly is just they couldn't recognize no longer in terms of this daughter, and then they brought the daughter to come to see me. Okay, and when I see the daughter, I immediately can see, okay, this case is more likely this young lady is having some form of psychosis breakdown, and it's not my area of expertise to help this lady, and I needed to refer this case, and chances are high I will have to refer to the Dr. Xavier as a psychiatrist to go for further diagnosis and treatment, and then she will need medication to able to managing her condition. But what happened is, when I see a mother and then I see a daughter who are experiencing, and it's very scary for mother to get to know, oh my gosh, my daughter going to take medication throughout life, and then there are a lot of resistance to make this change, and they don't even wanted to make appointment to see a psychiatrist. So my role is to be able to explain to the mother why she need help. So I will have to, like Dr. ALVIN say, soft approach to be very gentle and helping her to understand, and also calm her down, comfort her, affirm her. Thing is not as bad as thought. So I had to help her, and it's not like once you take medication, a whole lot will be taking medication. So I help to provide a lot of information to help her to understand what's going on. And why I do that, because I want these mothers or the family member involved to be able to provide support needed to this client who will be taking medication later. There will be a lot of side effect, a lot of change in behavior, and because it takes some time for the medication to kickstart, at least 2 weeks to 1 month. So that type of change is scare the family member. So I play that role to strengthen the support system of this client, of this patient. So when I can able to help the mothers and help the fathers, even the brother, sister, okay, there's a change happening here. We all had to prepare. It's going to be very tough, but once we come together, support, and she will able to get through this one. So I need all your help to provide the support needed. So I'm preparing the family member to get to know what's going to happen next. So it helped them psychologically. So they were able to know that, okay, Dr. Nicole, I mentioned, she need medication, at least, to see 2 weeks, 1 month. And that's where we start to see the change in behavior. But a lot often, family member is the one who caused a lot of trouble to not letting the child continue medication. And that's where a lot of complication can happen, because the child, the client had to readjusting to the medication is very bad condition. So I play that role to explain and help them to be very patient to wait for this change. And I found with this approach, it really provides amazing support to the client, and the client recovery much faster. And the best part, I like the client also bounce back faster, because we bounded to understand relapse can happen. But when I prepare client, the family, and the family actually aware that, okay, we're aware, relapse can happen, so they know what to do. So I can see that how I work closely. But this client, after taking medication, I will see that, Dr. maybe it will be good to send her to see a clinical psychologist to help her managing her inner voices or whatever that disturbing her. That's where CPT come in, hardcore psychologist approach to come in to help. But I'll provide a lot of support to the family. And that's how we provide a very comprehensive support to this client. Therefore, she can recover faster and bounce back faster. Thank you.
Should I go first, Alvin?
Yeah, please do. I'm still processing in my head.
Okay. Actually, I'm also co-founder, director of Health Equity Initiatives, and we serve refugees in the Klang Valley. So we have a team of 2 psychiatrists, a number of counselors, and a clinical psychologist. Because of the sheer numbers, the volume of numbers that we have, the psychiatrists, both of us, tend to make a diagnosis and then prescribe medication. And actually, we've also trained our health workers and counselors to do relaxation techniques. Now, this anybody can learn to do if you have the fundamentals. So we actually have a team that works with our refugee patients. The cognitive behavioral therapy and counseling, we leave it to the counselors and the clinical psychologists to do. Yeah, they have got their hands full because at any point of time, we have more than 350 patients under our care. So I think that's the best example I can give. I also practice in a private hospital, actually 2 private hospitals. In one private hospital, Damai Service Hospital, actually I tried to form a team. I got a friend who was a clinical psychologist, another a counselor, so that we could give the best we can, you know, to our patients. But it didn't work out because the clinical psychologist went her way and the counselor went her way. Yeah, I think it's just that we want to be independent and we want to run our own show sometimes. But I truly believe that working together helps. Yeah, especially because clinical psychologists are trained to do CBT in this country because that's the main therapy that they are trained to do, and CBT is an evidence-based therapy. We use only evidence-based therapy in our work, at least in my work. Yeah? So I do interpersonal psychotherapy when I see that the patients have an interpersonal focus. But for CBT, I refer to the clinical psychologists who are working with me. So I have now one clinical psychologist working with me in Damai Service Hospital, and the patients have given me such good feedback. So I am all for combined effort, teamwork, doing things together in order to help patients.
Right, for psychiatric care or mental health intervention. I'm going to give an example of a forensic, situation where a psychiatrist has been tasked to provide some kind of a diagnosis of an alleged criminal. So the psychiatrist, of course, to me, outsource, basically someone like an outsource agent who does the comprehensive assessment, write that super comprehensive report, because if it's going to go to court, it has to be like around this thick so that, I cover myself, as much as possible using all kinds of evidential support. And then it goes to the psychiatrist to help with the diagnosis, because I cannot be providing the legal diagnosis. Again, in this country, in actually most countries, isn't it, Dr. Xavier, that psychiatrists are the only person who's able to diagnose?
Actually, clinical psychologists can also diagnose, yeah. But the thing is, you all are not covered by any act.
That's the thing,
right?
Yeah.
So then the validity of your diagnosis is challenged.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
So usually the psychiatrist is the one who would sign off the diagnosis form or letter, but we provide the support. So that's one example of working together. And at the same time, we have someone who's an alleged criminal who's going through all these things. It's very stressful. So we also outsource to the counselor to help this person who's going through the legal process. Legal process is very stressful. And even in court, you get grilled by the lawyers. The psychiatrists will get grilled by lawyers as well. So we all need support. I got grilled by lawyers before. It's not fun. If you know that the whole process is going to be tough, you try to manage as well as possible, because at the end of the day, it's group effort in providing the best emotional, mental health support to everyone. So it's about creating a system and to provide the scaffolding around a system, around a person, so that a person is able to be as stable as possible. And we need to also understand that the system includes us as individual professionals, and we need to also be very responsible for our own health, mental and physical. So each time we approach a problem as in someone refers an individual to us, the way I see it is that the problem is not that one person. The problem is basically an interaction of all kinds of factors that somehow highlights the individual as having a problem. But if we only look at the individual as having the problem to be treated, then we actually, miss out on the rest of the story. And this is where we cannot function as a single mental health professional to solely provide the treatment. To me, it doesn't make sense, because especially if you understand mental illness is a combination of biology, psychology, and social factors, and in some cases, people would bring in spiritual factors. How can any one person do all of these? Because we cannot control so much of society, and there's only so much we can do as individual professionals. So that's where these kind of webinars are very useful, because we also rely on you in the society to improve your mental health literacy, so that anyone we treat or provide intervention to can be supported by the rest of the community. There's only so much we can do as mental health professionals, but we can do much better with your help. So I'm glad you all are here. Please get savvy, get mental health literate as much as possible. Ask as many questions as you can, because it's free, right? We are normally very expensive creatures. And this is after hours, so there's double pay. Please ask your questions. I see quite a few coming in already, so thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Alvin. Yeah, actually, like what Dr. Alvin said, please don't forget to put your burning questions into the Q&A. And if I'm not mistaken, there's the option that you can upvote the questions, so you can choose which questions you really, really want to get answered, so we can prioritize, because there's a lot of questions coming in, and we really want to prioritize the most valued one for all of you guys here. But back to the panel, it was really fascinating. It's very interesting because it's such a dynamic model at which how these three professions work together, and in many different settings as well. So that's really fascinating. Moving on to the next question on the panel, I think this one should be a short one. I think we have about 6 minutes before we move on to the Q&A. So this one is, what routes or platforms can the public use to gain accessibility to mental health services? Like, for example, like what route or what method should I use to gain accessibility to seek a psychiatrist, a counselor, or a clinical psychologist? Because sometimes it may be a little bit convoluted and a little bit gray as to how to go about to find these services. Like I don't know anything about it. So how do I go about starting to find help or therapy from a clinical psychiatrist or counselor? Who wants to start first?
I'll try.
Right, go ahead.
Yeah. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. It's nice to be corrected in front of the whole world. Yeah, you learn quicker that way. Well, if you ask me where to go for help, I would say anyone who's close by, easiest person, whoever you know, just go for help. If it is a psychiatrist, go for a psychiatrist. If they feel that you don't need medication as a treatment, then they will let you know. They can always refer you to someone else who may be better able to help. So if you can reach like Dr. Nicole first, go see her. She can make an assessment. If she can help, however she helps, she will help you out. She finds that you are perhaps too severe for her to continue support, to help like in more comprehensive way, then she will refer you on either to a psychologist. And usually if someone comes to me with, for example, obsessive compulsive disorder, I would definitely have to work with a psychiatrist, because we know from the literature that when it comes to OCD, you need to have medication. And with supportive cognitive behavior therapy to help you behaviorally change. So while you're on medication, you're more stable. It's then easier to receive my kind of instructions. And apart from that, you may even need supportive counseling at the same time. So it really doesn't matter, just go for help. If you can't find psychiatrist, counselor, or clinical psychologist, go see your local GP, who can then provide you with referral. Yep, that's it from me.
I actually totally agree with Dr. Alvin. Really talking about partnership is not just limited to psychiatric, clinical psychologists, or anyone related with mental health. Another one actually is family therapists. It's also presently we have quite numbers of family therapists in Malaysia as well. Yeah, but I do see that the value for us as a mental health profession to work very closely with GP, because I do came across numbers of cases referred by GP. They say, Nicole, this patient keep coming to me, and I know that it's not about heart palpitation issue. There's something else that is going on. So that's why, can you help to see? So that's where I also work very closely with GP and who trust me, okay, Nicole will able to do some form of assessment to decide whether that the best case go to the clinical psychologist or a psychiatric or others expertise. Yeah. So therefore, the partnership is extend to many, included my perspective aspect, included school. If example, I'm going to work with children, and I expected myself to, in the systemic perspective, you can't lose anyone. You have to have a structure that everyone coming together to provide support. So therefore, it's very important, mental health professional also do not just limit our only friends with psychiatric, our only friends with clinical psychologists. You have to friend with even GP, you know, family medicine. I see that I have a lot of colleagues and family medicine who love to work with me as well because they know the value of it, how we can provide support for each other. Yeah, regard to getting directory information, I cannot deny it have been tricky in this country because we have act that are counselor about it by act, psychiatric about it by act, clinical psychologist about it by act, but still waiting for the enforcement. Therefore, we do have a lot of people who just create a website. Hi, I'm a psychologist. Just come and see me. Yeah, or some actually can claim that they are psychiatric, don't even have medical degree and even psychological medicine. Quite shocking.
No,
Some
I
people
didn't know
they actually
this.
claim that. Yeah, quite shocking. Yeah, so that's the issue that we have. So really, you're talking about the system itself in the website is very scary. I can't even dare to say go and check it on Google because there's so many people claim who they are. So for counselor, we do have directory of counselor. You just go to directory counselor per daftar. So you go into check, you were able to see how many registered counselor. So if you suspect this particular counselor, whether she's qualified, you can just put her name, you were able to check whether she even active as a licensing. If she's not active as a licensing, no need to go and make appointment with her. The best is to make appointment with those who are licensing valid. Yeah. For clinical psychologists, I know they also have website to able to integrate a list of who are clinical psychologists and qualified. So that's what we do. I'm not so sure, Dr. Xavier, do we have a psychiatric directory in Malaysia? Maybe you can respond
Yes,
for that.
we do. And in fact, we also have a national specialist register. So all practicing psychiatrists have to be on the national specialist register. So if you Google, go into the internet, it will be there, our registration number with the Malaysian Medical Council and our NSR registration, National Specialist Registration. Otherwise, can't practice. You'll get caught, and if you're caught, you'll be put into jail. So then you can treat the prisoners rather than the patients outside there. Yeah.
Okay.
Would you want me to give my piece? Yeah.
Have you actually given a piece or like?
Not yet.
Okay, go
Maybe
ahead.
both Dr. Alvin and Dr. Nicole have put things in perspective, but you know, those in private practice do charge a fee. So how is there? How can people access free mental health services? Now, the government hospitals and Ministry of Health, they've done very good work in expanding mental health services. Now, every big hospital has at least one psychiatrist. Hospital Kuala Lumpur has got 10 psychiatrists. Yeah, the numbers are just growing. It's also because we are producing big numbers of doctors. When we produce a big numbers of doctors, more people will specialize, right? So I have some of my students from the IMU, from Malacca, Manipal, who are today psychiatrists. Yeah, and so you can access the public health system by going through either a private doctor or a government doctor in primary care. Then you get the referral and you go to the psychiatric department of any public hospital that is close to you and get an appointment. Yeah. So that is important for those who are not aware that there are psychiatrists in every big hospital. Yeah. Again, I'd like to emphasize, re-emphasize Dr. Nicole's point of primary care doctors providing also psychiatric or mental health services. Over the last 1 year, I have done 2 programs with general practitioners in this country. In fact, I had also the family physicians attending. One of them is an associate professor in the IMU. So training the GPs is very important, because when we think mental health, we always think psychiatrists. But actually in countries like Australia and UK, the GPs actually are the first line. Yeah. So good to go first to your doctor, if your doctor can help you. And actually we have trained a number of GPs to provide mental health services and even prescribe medication. Yeah. And if you need further help, then go to a private psychiatrist or a private clinical psychologist. Now, it's the safe people would be working in the hospital, because the hospitals looks through, screens all potential doctors or psychologists who work with them. So if you go to a number of the big hospitals, they have also got clinical psychologists program. So accessibility now is there, but accessibility also includes financial accessibility. Yeah. So having a kind of schedule of fees also helps, because some people want to charge big fees, but by right they should not, looking at the affordability of the people. So if you have the fixed kind of schedule of fees, like, okay, 300 ringgit per hour, then you know, okay, what you're there for. Yeah. Okay. You know whether you can afford those kind of services. Okay. I think that's enough from me. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Xavier.
Yeah.
All right. I'm actually getting a lot of questions from FB Live as well. I think let's not waste time, because we have a lot to cover for Q&A. So let's just start with the Q&A as it is. So let's see. Okay, so this is just a question for all 3 of you to answer. Just choose who wants to start first. Any advice for people who are planning to pursue masters in clinical psychology / counseling? What type of questions do they ask during the program entry interview? Yeah, this one has a lot of upvotes on Facebook. Yeah, you can tell there's a lot of students here.
I'll keep quiet.
Okay, I'll take this one, I guess. Yes, counseling or clinical psychology. And I noticed there was a question there also about, what about counseling psychologists? What's the difference there? My answer would be, it depends on the country. Because strictly speaking, in the US, if you use the term psychologist, it means you are trained as a psychologist where you are able to do psychological assessments. That's what is, psychologist. If you're a counselor, you are a counselor. You provide counseling, you provide psychotherapy, whatever psychotherapy that you are trained in. All right, so that's counselor. And counseling psychologists and clinical psychologists in the US are essentially the same. We are basically trained with the same skills, just that if you are a clinical psychologist, you are working within a hospital setting. If you're within the community, you are a counseling psychologist. That's my understanding of it. But somehow in Malaysia, things are a bit more blurry, right? So there may be people who call themselves a counseling psychologist in Malaysia. You're going to check their background. They may have just done, I don't want to say the word just yet, no such thing as just. They would have done counseling psychology masters, because in Malaysia, correct me if I'm wrong, Nicole,
Yes.
You know, you can do a master's in counseling psychology and you are actually a counselor.
Yeah, correct. It's true.
Yeah, not the psychologist that is understood in the US, which is why I say it depends on the country.
I totally agree with Dr. Alvin perspective, because in Malaysia, in terms of contact, when a university in Malaysia claim that they are offering master in counseling psychology, I only can say to you, based on the curriculum structure, they only training the counselor. So to be fair, I don't think it's right to call themselves as a counseling psychologist, due to the training nature are very different. A couple of counselors have different criteria in fulfilling the licensing. So what happened, a lot of university have to go inclined to that licensing. Therefore, a lot of their curriculum structure inclined to become a registered counselor. So so that would be different. So compared to, like example, I would say US, other country I'm actually not so sure. I do see a lot of my peers who get it from US, counseling psychology, they are much more well trained into the psychology assessments, just like Dr. Alvin had mentioned. Another phenomenon that I realized that very often used in Malaysia is, if I have degree in psychology and I have master in counseling, therefore I become counseling psychologist. No, you can't claim yourself as a counseling psychologist just because you combine your degree in psychology plus master in counseling. So the master of counseling is only train you to become a counselor. So I hope that clear the perspective. Thanks.
I would like to add also, you know, counseling or clinical psychology, which one to take? I want to clear up one thing. Too many people think that clinical psychology is better than counseling. That's nonsense, yeah? There's no such thing. I don't know how they come about, because it's creating a lot of rift between clinical psychologists and counselors. That's not right. No one's better than one another, than another. Like I said earlier, clinical psychology focuses more on the assessment part. So if you like assessments, you like to be a detective, you like investigations and writing reports and tons of reports, doing lots of literature review, sure, go on and do clinical psychology. And if you want to be in the action and dealing with people, providing counseling, helping people, listening, providing emotional support, go to counseling. The action is there. So my experience is, when I was running a program for clinical psychology at UKM, we had lots of applicants. When they came in, I would say easily half of them said, this is not for me. I never knew we had to do so many assessments, so many reports. I thought we just do counseling. I said, well, that's counseling. You should go and do counseling instead. And many actually stopped halfway and went on to do counseling and are much happier. So, you know, get to know more about what you're going to go into. So one is, of course, asking questions here, but we only have so many minutes tonight. That's what I will answer. Some of you have asked the difference between like neuropsychology, neurology, neuroclinical psychology, clinical neuropsychology. One of the easiest things to do is go onto the APA website, American Psychological Association website. It gives you all the breakdowns of the different kinds of specializations in psychology. Have a look at that first. You're not too sure, you don't understand, email me. I hope I get to reply you, because I get tons of emails every day. Why? Because on a webinar like this, I say email me, and you can imagine what happens.
Okay. That's it. You're finished already, right, Dr. Alvin?
I have muted myself. Now I'm muting myself again. Yeah.
Okay, Ken. Okay. So, okay, let's move to the next question. Again, it's a very student-heavy question. So, this relates back to employment prospects. So, there's actually two questions here. I feel that I could just lump it into one. First one is, let's see, where is this question? Okay, like, hi there, I'm just interested to know how big is the demand for counseling psychiatrists, clinical psychologists in Malaysia? And a follow-up to that, another question which I felt was very relevant is, how is the COVID situation also affecting employment prospects for the job market for mental health professionals in general? So yeah.
Okay, maybe I just give a quick one. Okay, regard to okay, Okay, regard to, of course, aspect of COVID, of course, it affected generally all of us, yeah. But we also see a trend of the increase of requesting mental health services, which we see is a good sign. So therefore, people are reaching out more help because they are affected by COVID, yeah, which I think is something that I actually glad it happened, yeah. But regard to job opportunity, okay, let me just put in the way that I'm not, you all can correct me if you think that is not necessarily correct. Okay, so what happened is, if you look into the history why in terms of mental health professional, counseling field started much more earlier and very much facilitated by education, the educationists who bring back from US and then they start the counseling program. So I cannot deny, due to the pioneer in Malaysia has started a lot of the pathway for us to able to start the mental health field in terms of counseling. So in very early in 1998, we already have act just specific focus into registered counselor. So I cannot deny, due to that, because of the law already there, and then the structure is there, the council member is there. So this I cannot deny, open up a lot of opportunity door to counselor. And furthermore, you have to understand the group of people we serve do not limit into just clinical setting. We actually serve in many different settings. And I find very fascinating, we do came across counselor actually serve in food, like caretaker, funeral company. They actually set up a counseling center to cater for the briefer, who actually a grief of the loss, and they actually have counselors to actually provide support. So I can see there's a lot of creativity and people start to venture more into. So I cannot deny, if you look into presently, in terms of opportunity given, I do see is counselor at this point of time. But you needed a lot of hard work, advocacy to able to bring more recognition to clinical psychology. That's where the post will become in to be recognized, more opportunity will be given. So that is what my observation. Alvin or Dr. Xavier, you can add on. Thanks.
From what I know, I think the demand for mental health professionals have gone up. Lots of people are stressed out with COVID, and it's a worldwide phenomenon. So you want to be a mental professional, it's a good time. We need help.
I've been in practice for some time, initially with the government, and then later when I joined the IMU more than 20 years ago, I started doing some private practice. But if you look at the trends, when I started doing private practice, there were very few full-time psychiatrists. Today, there are many more. And I agree with both Dr. Nicole and Dr. Alvin that people today, especially in the current time, and especially in the Klang Valley, that's what I tell people, there's people experiencing a lot of stress. In fact, stress is maybe the biggest health problem today. We see many patients with anxiety and depression, more so during the MCO and this pandemic period. So although I do practice, say, 2.5 days a week, I've been seeing an increasing number. It is a worldwide phenomenon. Mental health has come into prominence with the pandemic, and in fact, mental health problems are more than the infections, if you want to look at it that way. Yeah, it's a consequence of what's happening. You don't have to be infected to have a mental health problems. The larger family and the larger society is suffering. Socio-economically, the whole world is suffering. Many countries, big countries, have gone into recession, and then there's loss of jobs and loss of many things. Yeah, so people are struggling. Actually, many people are struggling with mental health problems in this extraordinary times. Do you have a scope? Definitely, because I think I don't hear of unemployed psychiatrists. I don't hear of unemployed clinical psychologists, and there's a big demand for counselors. Schools also have counselors today, so counselors are required in many different fields. Yeah.
Okay.
And sorry, one more thing. I'll go back to my point that I brought up in the beginning. Is this your calling? Are you called to be a counselor or a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist? Because it will demand a lot out of you. Interacting with people who come to you with a lot of needs actually draws a lot of energy out of you. Yeah. So it is not an easy job. It might look glamorous, but it is also very challenging, whether you're a counselor, a clinical psychologist, or a psychiatrist.
Okay, Ken. Thank you very much, Dr. Xavier.
Yes, that's right. It is not glamorous.
Okay, you heard the man. You heard the man. All right. This one has sorry if the Zoom questions are not being answered, but my support team is telling me like which are the more upvoted questions from both platforms, FB Live and Zoom. So it seems to be a lot of upvotes at the FB Live questions. So here's the one that's I think a lot of people want to know. Thank you, helpers. How do you see the role of telephone helplines or face-to-face support services set up by NGOs like Befrienders, Agape, Belita, Mitraline, etc. in supporting mental health challenges within our community?
Okay, in my perspective, they are all considered our partner as well. Because counselor, clinical psychologist, psychiatric, you cannot expect that we are all 24 hours on duty. Actually, very glad we have Befriender. I'm very glad that we have a lot of NGO who provide helpline. Because without them, there's a lot of cases, example, suicide cases, they may complete suicide without the support. So actually see them as a partner, yeah, and that's where partnership come into working together, yeah. The only challenge is sometimes people can claim too much and they start to do too much of intervention without getting the right support. That become more concern. So I actually, be honest, for those who are interested to work as a clinical psychologist or counselor, if you are interested, do go and volunteer yourself to all these NGOs who provide mental health support, because this also giving you of experience. Do you comfortable to serve and going to managing and dealing with patients every day in a daily basis? So I'm actually glad. Actually in Malaysia, I'm actually very proud to say Malaysia is one of the countries full with NGO support, and though NGO are struggle to survive and sustain themselves, but they still persistent to provide the support. It can be in religious group, it can be funded, but they are doing amazing work. That's what I'm very grateful to have them to provide that support. Yeah, thanks.
Alvin, you want to go first?
Carry on. I'm busy answering questions on online.
Okay.
Actually, sorry, before you guys start, maybe just try to make your input shorter so we can do another 2-3 more questions before we end. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I work in a unique way because I used to work in the public sector. Now I'm in the private sector, and I'm also working with my NGO. So if you look at mental health services, it's provided, these are the 3 main players: the public sector, the private sector, and the NGOs. And they all have important roles to play. Yeah. Befrienders, definitely. Last year, I'm also the chair of the Catholic Counselors and Therapists. So I have a number of hats. I told Alvin and Nicole I'm planning to retire next year. But when we had this program, we had a national program last year on the prevention of suicide. We had Justin Victor, who is the chair of Befrienders, as one of the speakers. And he told me that, he told us that the numbers are just increasing, those who are phoning in for help. Phoning in does have the advantage of being anonymous, yeah, rather than face-to-face. So they said they just cannot manage the number of calls. And this Nicole's call to volunteer, asking people to volunteer, is, I think, very, very important. many people just need a listening ear, you know, and if we could just do that, empathetic listening, it brings about a lot of healing, actually. Yeah.
Dr. Alvin?
I wasn't listening, sorry. I was furiously typing away, trying to answer as many questions as I can. What was the question?
Wait, the question.
Befrienders and stuff, is it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I mean, the more the merrier. And you know, someone was just asking, should we get students to learn up basic counseling skills? Yes, not just students. Tell your whole neighborhood. You know, tell a neighbor. Subang Jaya Care Warriors. That's an example, a very good example for community coming together to learn very basic counseling skills so that they're able to provide support to each other. Why not? Why can't we train everyone? Train people from the start them in kindy, you know, put listening skills in kindergarten so they grow up being more empathetic. I don't know how you say it. So English lecturers, please correct me. And, you know, we have tons of stress, and if we rely only on mental health professionals, there are not enough of us. Come on, there are 32 million people in this country and growing, all right? There's no way we're going to be competing with one another because there's not enough of us. 1 in 5 people at any one time has a mental health problem, all right? We tend to only focus on this 1 in 5, right? That's 20%. That's a lot of people, isn't it? How many psychiatrists do we have in this country? 300, 400? Around that? Yeah,
more than 400 now. The numbers
counselors maybe around that or maybe more, right? Counselors, because they've been around for a long time. Clinical psychologists, I can say easily maybe just above 200 in a population of 32 million. That's a lot, and we cannot train enough mental health professionals in time. So we need to get a whole gang coming together to be helping each other. And this is why we need to really increase or improve access to mental health service by training as many people as possible, training basic health skills, task shifting. Task shifting is the word. We shift the task as psychotherapists, as any kind of mental health professional, to those without the professional training. They can do the basic things. So they are able to focus on not so severe cases, mild cases that don't have to go to the counselor or the psychologist or the psychiatrist. If you can deal with those cases early, then you are preventing. We need to focus more on a preventive role because, you know, it's really expensive. I'm expensive. Dr. Nicole's expensive too. She's in private. Dr. Xavier, he's in private in a few places, even more expensive. But luckily he's got HEI, you know, that's where, you know, you're giving back to society. Well done. But, you know, not many people can afford. I mean, therapy is expensive, and medication. How much do you have to pay for medication a month? It's like at least 1,000 ringgit, isn't it? Around that in private?
It depends. Original medication, yes, but generic medication, you might be below 200 ringgit per month. Yeah,
still a lot. You know, yes. Original maybe 500 to 1,000 a month. How do you get that kind of money? You know, it's not easy. So we want to prevent as much as possible. And in this day and age of COVID, tons of people are getting stressed up. There's not enough of access to mental health service. We need to get the whole community involved. So those of you who are here, try to get trained in whatever intervention. You know, make sure it's legit, yeah? Get the legit ones. I know there are quite a few centers out there providing all kinds of training. You can do a weekend training and you are considered a therapist. Run far away from those, because you cannot become a healer in this one weekend. But what you can become is a helper. You're able to learn certain basic skills that you can use to help another person, and to also teach them help other people. Teach them to help other people. So I don't know, is that something that was asked? I'm just guessing, but there you are. Ta-da! Back to you, Daryl.
All right, thank you about that. Yeah, I'm just trying to decide what's the more important questions here. There's a lot. Okay. Okay, I think I'll go for this question here. It was mentioned that mental health professionals should team up to provide treatment. Should mental health systems be reformed? For example, linking school counselors to clinical psychologists working in a hospital.
I mean, I don't think that's reformation. That's basically improving the system. Reformation would be like to turn everything. I think the system's already pretty okay, isn't it, Dr. Xavier?
It's improving. It's improving. At one time when I graduated as a psychiatrist, the Ministry of Health didn't have posts for clinical psychologists. They had posts for counselors. Yeah, but now they are taking in clinical psychologists. The biggest clinical psychology department in the country is in HKL, Hospital Kuala Lumpur. It is the department works hand in hand with the Department of Psychiatry. So there's much that we can do. There's also community psychiatry that's being developed, and various subspecialty of psychotherapies, psychiatry, like liaison psychiatry, forensic psychiatry, and things like that. Yeah. But I would say that the recent heads of the Ministry of Health, the mental health section, they have been doing a lot of good work, and things are improving. Yeah. Coming to your question about school networking, I'd rather use the word networking. Schools should network with the public institutions which provide mental health services, because counselors have a role. When the mental health problems are more serious, they should have some place to refer the children to. Yeah.
All right.
So okay, Derek can go ahead because I think we need to save time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, can. Okay, so for this one, the next one would be, sorry, we're just gonna go a little bit overboard a little bit because we kind of started late a bit, so I think it's fine for us to go overboard a little bit on the time. Right? So next question would be, does freshly graduated clinical psychologists, do they have to work in hospital/clinics in Malaysia? I guess this is a question.
Yeah, well, have to is one thing. It depends on whether or not there are posts. Like Dr. Xavier said, there used to be no posts for clinical psychologists in the Ministry of Health. Now, if I'm not wrong, there are 42. There are 42 posts. About 33 have been filled. So you have another 9. Give it a try. I would definitely suggest going into the public system, because from there you actually get more exposure. You get to see basically the whole range of patients, and that gives you a lot of much better training, because if you go into private, you only get people who come in, those who can afford, and you're getting a very, very narrow part of the society, and you don't learn very much there. Plus, of course, you know, if you are young, you just graduated, you go into private, no one really knows you. And you probably get a lot of people with ageism coming in and saying, "You're so young, you're just like my son, can trust one." They probably start nagging you, "You know, I tell you, my son, you know better, you tell him to." So those kind of stuff can be a very difficult thing. It's like me, I started out in the government sector, in the public sector, and you know, I think 11 years at UKM was fantastic. It was Spartan training. It was very tough, but it gets you the connection and network. To the point now, I'm still a consultant for the Ministry of Health and also WHO, you know, because in a public service system, you get to meet everyone. You get to learn from each other. And that's where you really understand how the system works. So that's why I'm saying you don't even have to reform the system. It is already there. It's been improving. The Ministry of Health actually has been doing a lot of very good work. There's community psychiatry, there's working with the private sector. The system is there. It's improving, and we are making it work. So yes, if you're fresh, go as much as possible into the public system. If you cannot, do have some kind of, you know, put a foot in somewhere and do like part-time in some hospital somewhere. Best to go into more of the rural area. Make sure you also get supervision from some senior clinical psychologists. We don't have enough outside of Klang Valley. Most are in Klang Valley. About, I don't know, less than 10 in Penang. half in Malacca. Yeah, because the other half is also in Negeri Sembilan. I think there are about 5. So yeah, they do part-time, 1 in Johor Bahru. I think maybe there are 2 now. 2 in Kuching, 3 in Kota Kinabalu. I don't know, I've lost touch, but you know, most are in Klang Valley. The rest of the country needs you. So go forth and multiply.
Alvin, you know, this is a thought that I have, which from also my exposure to clinical psychologists in other countries, because I belong to the International Society of IPT. In the US, you don't really get a chance to practice unless you complete a full course, the master's, and then now it's PhD is a requirement. That's what I heard, you know.
That's correct.
Yes. So I would say actually the system needs to be reformed a bit. Maybe an internship after the 2-year clinical psychology program, just like how doctors do an internship of up maybe 6 months to 1 year in the government hospital, a public hospital, would do wonders in terms of, skills and knowledge with regard to mental health. What do you think?
I totally agree. I totally agree on that, Dr. Xavier, because that's the Australian system. Like if I were to go back to Australia now where I was trained to practice as a clinical psychologist, I wouldn't be registered. I need to do at least a 1-year supervised internship. This is
Right.
Post-doctorate, yeah, before I can be fully registered as a clinical psychologist.
Right.
That's how they make sure that equality is there. And I agree. I think we should do something like that. I mean, the reformation in that sense, yeah, I think that should happen because 2 years of master's is not enough.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing from a lot of master's level trained clinical psychologists in Malaysia, when they finish after 2 years, they say, look, we need more training. This is just not enough. And this is why in the UK, US, Canada, and New Zealand, to be a clinical psychologist, you must have at least a doctorate in clinical psychology to ensure that you've got the minimal amount of training. And even after that, you must still go through at least a 1-year supervised practice before you can be fully registered as a clinical psychologist. It takes at least like 3 to 4 years. So ethical practitioners will know that after 2 years of training, they are still very, very fresh and they need more supervision. And I know many unethical ones who come out, yay, got degree, I can be your doctor now. No, you know, it's a lifelong training thing. Even for me now, I would like to go back into training. I won't be comfortable or confident with myself going into clinical service right now. In fact, if I perhaps join Dr. Nicole in service, I probably have to ask her to supervise me and maybe give her my rotan, you know, in case she has to discipline me. Yeah, it's all about lifelong learning. We are always learning from each other, and we need to do that. We need to keep on being updated. It is a professional responsibility. Yeah, thanks for that, Dr. Xavier. That's a very good suggestion.
Welcome.
Okay. Any more input? No more.
I think the most important is start with us. If you really believe what we advocate today, working as a partnership. So if you don't, you plan to go into mental health field. So remember what we shared today. So you're responsible not just become a clinical psychologist, a counselor, but you have a role to play with working with different partnership to provide the best service, quality care to your patient. Thank you. Pass back to you now.
All right. So I think we have to end the Q&A session. I think it's been going on for too long. I think I can see the panelists are really, really tired here already. But okay, so like just to have like some nice closure to everything, like if you could leave the viewers here with just one key takeaway message, what would it be? You know, what is the one thing that you want our participants to leave with? Who wants to start?
I can start. I'm on a roll. Yay. All right. The one thing that I would like to say is please keep on talking about mental health. Keep on having conversations about mental health. That's one way we can reduce the stigma on mental health. The more we talk about it, the more we normalize it, the easier it is for anyone who needs mental health support to go seek help for their mental health issues. I am a trained clinical psychologist. Guess what? I access mental health service because I am very stressed up at work. all right, I go see the psychologist at Sunway Medical Center because as a Sunway staff, we get free sessions, up to 8 sessions. But you know, you can imagine the psychologist being kind of shocked because she was my former student. The boss coming in, but still, you know, it's about seeking help and there's nothing wrong with it. I had to even educate the GP I went to see to get a referral to see the psychologist. She asked me what I do. I said, I'm a lecturer. What lecturer? Psychology. You lecturer in psychology, so must go and seek help. See, that's where, you know, there's such stigma even for a medical professional to have. So I had to educate her. I said, look, I'm human, bite me, I bleed. You don't bite me, you can just inject me, you can take blood from me, no problem. You know, I'm just as human as anybody else. No one is immune to mental health problems. So keep on talking about it. Let's, you know, break the stigma together. There's nothing wrong with seeking help, and do it early. Like I said earlier, it's very expensive if you get too serious. Now, by the time you get to see Dr. Xavier, ooh, that's pretty serious stuff. So let's aim to not get to see any one of us except for maybe on this kind of panel. Safer that way. All right, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Nicole?
Okay,
You want-
me. Okay, I want to highlight again in terms of the partnership. I'll be honest with you. This year come to my 19th to 20 years as counselor. So I'm looking back 20 years ago, it was really tough journey for a counselor because we were still very new to the field. And actually, we work very hard. Yeah. So sometimes the pioneer get very upset, you know, all the young ones, they destroy the system. We work very hard to build the system. So we are here to let you know, we work very hard to build the system. We want you to able to continue build this system because 10 years from now, 20 years from now, we may go to retire. We need someone to take over. So we like you coming together, strengthening the system, emphasis of the partnership, and when you believe the partnership, because our priority is the client, the patient. Yeah. So let hand in hand work together, yeah, to make a good system to support the client. Thank you so much.
I thought I will just touch on the World Mental Health Day theme, mental health for all. Both Dr. Alvin and Dr. Nicole have actually added to that theme. Let's work together to make accessibility to mental health services possible. And in that light, those of you who are thinking of becoming mental health professionals, listen to your head and your heart. Is this where you want to go? Do you want to serve others? Yeah, for those who are not and who have come here because you want to know more about mental health, keep on doing that. Increase your awareness about mental health. Do not be afraid to access mental health services if you have to. And I wish you all good mental health.
All right, Ken. Thank you very much, Dr. Xavier, and thank you very much, Dr. Alvin and Dr. Nicole. So I think we have talked long enough. We're all very tired. So let's just close this. So just some brief stuff to talk through to end this thing is that we're actually, one of the participants, Vatika, said that where's the attendance form? We're going to give you out a feedback form right now to fill up to just help us evaluate the performance of this webinar. We really appreciate the feedback because then we will know what you guys are looking for future webinars so we can better provide value for all of you guys here. So yeah, as you can see, there's a QR code, there is a link. Please access the feedback form. For those who are looking to get attendance for certification or I'm not sure CPD points, it is very important that you fill that up as well, so that we can confirm your attendance. So yeah, please do that. And also for those who are interested in having their other questions answered, we are going to, for all those questions that's not answered, we're going to answer them at a later date, and we're going to put them all onto a Google Doc form and send it out to you guys. So if you guys want access to that, fill up the feedback form so we know who to send it to. We are also preparing a resource list because we know that some of you guys here want to access mental health services but don't know who or don't know how to go about it. we have prepared a very extensive resource list that contains a whole list of mental health services with your phone numbers and their contact details, so you can get the help that you need. If you want access to that, fill up the feedback form and we'll send it right away to you guys. Is there anything else I'm missing? I think that's about it. Yeah, I think that's about it. And with that, I think we can very safely close the webinar today. Thank you so much again, Dr. Alvin, Dr. Nicole, and Dr. Xavier for coming up today to talk to us about your jobs. We really
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
us.
Yeah, thank you for having us, and you're welcome.
Yeah,
And a good
thanks for
night,
everything.
Yeah.
good night,
All right.
everybody.
Take
Right.
care.
Catching up with you, Alvin and Nicole.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
So for those who want to leave, you can go ahead and leave first. If you need time to fill out the feedback form, just stay in the chat, stay in the room and fill it up. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Good night and
Night,
goodbye.
everyone.
Bye. Good night.
Night.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, I'm just staying because I'm very curious about the kinds of questions you're asking.
Okay, see you guys.
All right. Bye,
Bye,
Xavier.
Dr.
Really
Xavier.
good seeing you.
Oh, we have a lot of questions to answer.
I'll need a whole week to answer this.
Oh no. No, I mean, I think if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Nicole is going to help you out as well.
Oh yeah, of course. All of us are going to be doing it.
Yeah. So that's a good thing. All right, I think we can close the Zoom session and the FB Live now. For those who still want to fill up the feedback form, I think we will release a Facebook post soon on our Facebook page with the QR code and the link, so you guys can access the feedback form from there. Thank you again so much for everyone for this coming for the webinar, and good night, everyone.
Daryl, can you wait on a moment? Let me just take a picture of all the questions.
Yeah.
But everybody can have a good night lah.
Yeah. Dr. Alvin, if you want to leave, you can leave now.
Yeah, I'm just obsessed with questions.
Wow.
Is that why you are our lecturer? Is that why you make like exam questions for us?
No, I'd rather not have exam questions for you all. If I had my way, I'll have oral exams.
Kasian, the people who are scared to speak.
Yeah, exactly, isn't it? Put you on the spot. But the thing is, validity is question lah.
Understand.
I had oral exams when I was doing my clinical psychology. It was kind of cool. Every answer was, what do you do in this case? I'll say cognitive restructuring. Okay, done. Check. What else can you do? Behavior therapy. Okay, done. Check.
Well, it does make sense, because if people are going to ask you that in your day-to-day life, I mean, you know, as a psychologist, so you need to be able to think on the spot.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I've taken down all the Q&A questions and answers from Dr. Alvin, so I'll put them up on a shared Google Doc. So for everybody else, you know, you may leave and we will talk on email.
Okay, yeah, I'll stop answering questions now.
All right.
Quite a few of the questions you can actually just put websites, so that we don't have to keep on repeating. Like, you know, how to find out more about, say, forensic psychology, blah, blah, blah. Just put that apa.org. And then on salaries, public service, I'd like to, you know, you can, you know, refer them to the Jabatan Perkhidmatan Awam website. It tells you the whole scheme Jawatan and all the salaries are there. Private, well, there's no money in mental health work. It's like Dr. XAVIER says, calling. So it's not about the money, it's about improving people's quality of life. That's your payment. Because if they're well, you'll have a nice neighborhood. Right? Yeah. So be nice to your enemies too, because if they're not well, then you get it hard.
Yeah, understand. Okay, Dr. Alvin, let's
okay.
Close our
Good night,
webinar. Good night, everybody.
Take care. Well done.
Good night.
We'll talk to you on email.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Dr. Alvin. Good night.
Bye-bye. Good night.